Hey guys, Prof here, and I've got a bit of a talking head video for you. I just hopped out of the shower. That's probably why I look all clean. And one thing the shower is for me is a place to think. Same thing with driving cars, and there's other things like that. Just because there's a lot of time, not a lot maybe, but you're not doing anything else, so it's just time to think. And I was pondering about the server that I'm building. And what came to mind was how much graphics cards, up until very, very recently, have held back motherboard layouts. And what I mean by that is even a high-end desktop, you'll have 40 PCI Express lanes, not including the chipset. And even then, you'll still have, including chipset slots, 3 to maybe 4 that are 4x or larger, which is really annoying. The reason why that would be is if you want to start putting in things other than graphics cards, you probably don't need a 16x lane, yet you have to use a whole 16x lane. And it doesn't auto split out or anything like that. Now, I'm going to reference some stuff. I'm going to try and throw some stuff up on the screen with me. It's going to be in reference to mostly my systems and the motherboards that I've either bought or worked with. But what I'm kind of getting at is when I built my system with the dual 670s, I think that would have been an X58 system if I recall correctly initially, and then later X79. In both of those cases, because I was running SLI, and then even later with my dual 980s, I was again running SLI. And what that means on a 40-lane motherboard is you're actually getting 16 lanes per graphics card. At no point really have you needed 16 lanes for a graphics card. So what this then restricts you is that in most motherboard layouts, you're only going to have the bottom as an 8x off the CPU, or maybe even a 4x, and then sometimes it's even just on non-high-end desktop systems, it's just a 4x from the chipset. And then you're having all these lanes in 2 main slots. And where this becomes an issue is I'm trying to build myself a proper server or NAS using free NAS, and I need to have my HBA, which is the host bus adapter, instead of a RAID card, since we'll have anything that in software. That needs an 8x slot. Then I have 2 10 gigabit Ethernet cards. Both of those are 4x. Now, I have a bunch of hardware around here. I would like to use Ryzen. The issue with that is that because that is a consumer-focused gaming platform, almost all the motherboards, if not all of them, have a 8x lane. Now, if you look at some of the newer Intel stuff coming out with the 9000 series CPUs, they're finally splitting up the PCI-E lanes where it goes off the CPU 8x, 4x, 4x, instead of where you would normally see 8x, 8x, 4x from the chipset. And that's much more useful because you're going to have PCI Express SSDs now, and that's where probably that 4x in the lane, bottom lane might go to instead of just through the chipset. And there's other things you might want to do with that, like a 10 gigabit Ethernet card, RAID card. There are numerous things. So I was hoping that because these new Intel boards had that layout, I was hoping some AMD Ryzen ones did. I found one, thanks to the help of Wendell from Level 1 Techs, but it does force me to adapt an M.2 slot to a PCI Express 4X. That is a bit annoying, but at least it can be done. It is, however, the highest end Asus motherboard, the Crossfire 7 Hero. And for what I'm using it for, it'll have like a R3 1200 in it. So it's going to be kind of hilarious having the cheapest CPU and one of the most expensive motherboards. And thinking back, how this started was down here. Right here is the pylon. I'm working on setting it back up here, and you may have seen a video on it, or you may see that shortly. The reason why this whole NAS got started was I wanted to add I modded the BIOS so it could have an NVMe boot drive. However, in this X79 motherboard, with a CPU, because all X79 CPUs, to my knowledge, can do 40 lanes, it only has 16x, 16x, 8x. And I already have in there graphics card, RAID card, 10 gigabit Ethernet. So I don't have, even though I should have plenty of lanes, I don't have plenty of slots. Like I don't physically have a slot to put in the NVMe. For now, I just pulled the 10 gigabit Ethernet because my desktop is not yet completed, and Chibi PC, my ITX rig, does not have a 10 gigabit card. This has prompted me, though, to build the NAS. That way I can have NVMe in here, and then I can have my dedicated storage device that can run some software as well. This is definitely more ideal, but and in this case I can do it. At one point I had switched I'd merged my home theater PC and my server because I had to have the home theater PC on all the time recording TV. Now that I am on YouTube TV, that is not required. So I can finally allow my home theater PC to shut off or at minimum go to sleep while the server I'm building will be on all the time. And we'll probably do a better job of it. And I'll appreciate it, but the thought that a lack of PCI Express slots, not even lanes, I have enough lanes since I run mostly high-end desktop. I have since X58. I don't have a limitation on actual lanes, but the slots themselves. There aren't enough in there. Looking at my desktop, my main system, which runs the Sabertooth X99, it also has a bit of an odd setup where you have, it's better but not much. You have the 16x PCIe, 16x PCIe, 8x PCIe, and then somewhere in between there is the 4x PCI Express 2.0 from the chipset. It also does have an NVMe drive. That, however, instead of like the newer AMD Asus board, instead of taking part of another PCI Express lane, it takes the whole thing. So even though it's a 4x, that slot's no longer usable. It doesn't take 4 lanes from the last PCI Express slot. It disables that entire slot to have an NVMe drive, which is really annoying. Actually, I've had issues even getting it running at PCI Express 3.0 as well. That might have been fixed with a BIOS update. I've, however, switched to the 900p NVMe drive, so it's not going to be an issue anymore. However, what this does create an issue with is, in there I have a 2080 Ti now. I have my 750 Ti for additional monitors. Then I have my NVMe Optane drive. And then I have my 10 gig Ethernet card. The layout of that gets a bit funky because, to be truthful, I could probably run, if needed, I can run the 750 Ti through the chipset. It's not going to be great, but I'm not running SLI, and it's just for additional monitors. Right now, however, it's set up where the 10 gigabit Ethernet card is going through the PCI 2.0x4 through the chipset, and that may be bottlenecked. I'll have to do a bit of testing once the server is built, but it is a little bit annoying because, once again, I have plenty of lanes in that system and just not enough slots. So this is kind of, I've worked with server boards before and I've never had to load them up with anything like bunches and bunches of cards, but it makes sense why they, for the most part, have 4x and 8x slots, one slot spaced with the back end cut off so you can stick 16x cards in there, or 8x and a 4x if you need to. And X58 has this as well, same sort of thing, where you have plenty of lanes and they want to give you they give you 16 lanes per slot and then some 1x's. They're finally going away from this trend, which is good to see, but this is really gimped, in my opinion, gimped motherboard layouts for consumers, especially prosumers. And Asus does have their workstation boards, which handle this a bit better, but it's always like, oh, it's a consumer or a gaming board or a prosumer board, so they're going to want to stuff graphics cards in here. And it makes sense to put a 1x under there that might get disabled by onboard Wi-Fi or whatever. Personally, I'd rather them not even include that and allow me to edit later and allow me to use those lanes. But, you know, it's fine because it's under the graphics card. Now motherboards are finally shifting where they're starting to realize, because NVIDIA has all but abandoned SLI, that the first slot doesn't have any, or the first graphics slot does not have a 1X slot under it. It's just blank. A lot of times they'll put an NVMe slot under there. That gets a bit hot for me, so you started seeing those above the graphics cards now in a lot of Asus boards. The other thing you've been seeing in a lot of above those first graphics card slots is 1X slots. That used to be a trend, a fairly common one, but it has gone away over the years because, you know, in order to market our motherboard, we need to stuff as many graphics cards as we can in there. You know, we can say it supports triple SLI or quad SLI, when in reality that layout takes away its usability when you're only really going to have one, like most common, even back when SLI and I ran the GTX 980s, which I would say would be the height of SLI in my opinion. And I ran those for 3 years. Eventually got to the point where I even downgraded to a 1070 Ti because so few new games, even ones built on engines that previously supported SLI, and I wanted better performance and the lanes available for other stuff. And motherboard manufacturers are finally taking that into account and not covering up a slot below them, so you'll actually be able to plug stuff in, and then splitting those lanes up a bit better. And I'm very, very happy to see that, but I just think, you know, that's due to trends, and SLI really not being a thing has helped motherboards now, because previously just the ability to do it, even though a very small percentage of people like me ran SLI. I ran it since, I believe, the 200 series with the GTX 260 Core 216, since that was a cut down like 270 or 265 and could SLI. I didn't really do the 8000 or 9000 series SLI, but that was my first setup, and ever since then it's been SLI up until that 1070, 1080, now 2080 Ti is what I'm stuck with. And just the ability to have multiple cards in there and then wanting to market that ability has really hampered actually being able to use your slots, which kind of bugs me because I want to get, you know, some of these additional cards in there to get stuff far more usable for my stuff. Totally forgot where I was with this. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed my thoughts on this. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Are you also happy about this? Because now we're getting dedicated PCI Express lanes for NVMe from the CPU. Intel's starting to split up these PCI Express lanes a little bit better. Asus has shown that they can actually make it where when you add a card, it only turns off part of another slot, which all of these things should have or have been available in the past, but very uncommon in consumer gaming and prosumer boards, more on the server end. Hopefully you guys will find more use for this, because 10 gigabit between computers is very useful. Multiple NVMe drives, or, you know, a lot of SSDs are getting cheaper and cheaper. Maybe you want to run a RAID array with SSDs, and going through the chipset is not your best idea because you're going to bottleneck with only a couple of them, and you might want to put in a RAID card. You can get some older ones that are fully capable of running, you know, a full, you know, RAID 0, RAID 10, even a RAID 5 at full speed for, you know, relatively cheaply used. And say you get all 2 terabyte or larger SSDs. Now with the Samsung QLC ones, 4 terabyte isn't necessarily going to be uncommon on the consumer side. Just let me know what you think, and throw it down in the comments below. Throw it down in the comments below, or you can go over to the website, the-tech-exchange.com, and if it's something more lengthy, that's probably better to put there. And as always, you can find me on Twitter. This was originally just going to be a tweet about under my hashtag tech thoughts, but I think it constituted a video because, you know, this is something that's been, I guess, in my opinion, hampering the motherboards for quite some time. And I've been running into it as I've been updating some of my rigs around here and even building new ones. If you thought this was good enough to share, please do it. As always, that helps me more than anything else with my size right now. And you guys have been great and helping me grow. We'll see you in the next one.